There's a small town in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains where the trees whisper secrets and the fog rolls in like a thick blanket, hiding what lurks beneath. It was here in the autumn of 1983 that the residents of McClure, West Virginia, began to speak of a presence in the woods, a shadow that moved silently, watching, waiting until it struck. McClure, a quiet coal mining town, was the kind of place where everyone knew each other and nothing much ever happened. But that all changed one crisp October night when the first signs of something dark began to emerge. That night, the woods around McClure seemed alive, the wind howling through the trees like a warning, but no one was listening. It started with the disappearance of Melanie Rourke, a 22-year-old college student visiting her grandparents. She was last seen walking her dog near the edge of the woods, a familiar trail she'd walked dozens of times before. The sun was setting, casting long shadows through the trees. When she didn't return that evening, her family thought maybe she had gone into town or stayed with friends. But when neither she nor her dog came back the next day, they knew something was wrong. Melanie's disappearance rattled the town. The sheriff organized search parties, and for days, volunteers scoured the woods, calling her name, hoping to find her safe. But all they found was her dog, tied to a tree, shaking and terrified. The search intensified, but still, no sign of Melanie. Then, 2 weeks later, the town was shaken once more. Jared Hunt, a local handyman, vanished from his cabin, located deeper in the woods. His wife returned home after visiting family, only to find the door wide open, the lights still on, and Jared gone without a trace. And it didn't stop there. Within a span of a few months, 4 more people went missing. Some were found later, but not alive. The bodies that were discovered were mutilated in ways that sent waves of fear and speculation throughout the community. The sheriff was overwhelmed, the town on edge, and rumors began to spread like wildfire. People spoke of an old legend, one that had been passed down for generations. The shadow in the woods, they called it, an ancient entity that roamed the forests, hunting those who wandered too far from the safety of the town. It was said to be a spirit of vengeance, a dark force that could manipulate the trees, the fog, even the very air. The elders whispered of strange occurrences from decades ago, disappearances, mysterious deaths, long before McClure even existed. Of course, most dismissed it as folklore until the letters started arriving. Each family of the missing received a letter, handwritten, scrawled in barely legible script. They were cryptic and filled with terrifying imagery, references to a hunt, and phrases like, "The woods are alive," "You're being watched," and the chilling line that appeared in every letter: "You cannot hide from the shadow. Authorities were baffled. No fingerprints, no DNA, no leads, just a dead end at every turn." The FBI became involved, but even they couldn't crack the case. As weeks turned into months, fear turned to desperation, and eventually, the town's residents began to leave. But then, out of nowhere, something happened that changed everything. A local boy, Tommy Walters, stumbled out of the woods injured but alive. He had been missing for 3 days, presumed another victim of the shadow. His face was scratched and pale, his clothes torn, and his eyes wide with terror. What he said sent chills down the spine of anyone who heard it. Tommy spoke of a man, no, a creature, that lived in a hidden cabin deep within the woods. He said he'd been kidnapped by this man, tied up, but somehow managed to escape. He described his captor as having long, wild hair, deep, sunken eyes, and a voice like gravel. But the most disturbing detail was the way the man moved. Tommy claimed the man didn't walk. He glided, like a shadow passing through the trees. A search party was sent into the forest, following Tommy's directions. They combed through the dense, dark woods for days, and eventually they found something. It wasn't a cabin, though. Instead, deep in the heart of the forest, they discovered a cave. Inside the cave, they found what could only be described as a shrine. Animal bones, old photographs, bits of clothing, and most horrifying of all, locks of human hair. But there was no sign of the man Tommy had described. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. The cave only added to the growing mystery. And even with this new discovery, the disappearances continued. It wasn't until the winter of 1984 that the town finally reached its breaking point. Nearly half of McClure's population had either gone missing or left town. But just as quickly as the disappearances had started, they stopped. There were no more letters, no more bodies, no more sightings of the shadow. McClure became a ghost town, its remaining residents too terrified to stay. Over the years, the forest reclaimed the town, and McClure became little more than a memory, a dark legend whispered by the few who still remembered what happened. To this day, the case remains unsolved. Some believe the shadow was a figment of collective hysteria, a product of fear that consumed the town. Others swear it was real, that something unnatural roams the Appalachian woods to this day, watching and waiting for its next victim. But one thing is certain: no one has dared to go back into those woods. And if you ever find yourself near McClure, West Virginia, remember, there's a reason the town vanished. Because in the deepest part of those ancient woods, the shadow still lingers, waiting for those foolish enough to wander too far from the light. And you can never hide from the shadow. Please like, share, and comment for more.